Hello, welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. Today we are going to discuss the idea of long run Phillips curve. Let's get started. The idea of long run Phillips curve is something that happened as a result of the stagflation situation which came after the establishment of the short run Phillips curve, which showed an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. So, the stagflationary situation after the establishment of the short run Phillips curve and the resultant collapse of the original Phillips curve had prompted many economists to examine the role of what is called expectation. So, they asked, what is the role of expectations in Phillips curve? What is the role of expectation in Phillips curve? And what we could see is that the inverse relationship that we can have in the case of the short run Phillips curve between the inflation in the economy and the unemployment in the economy could only hold in the short run. This is what we could understand after collecting data. This is something which has been supported with empirical evidences. So the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment, we have already done a video on the original Phillips curve, which shows the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. I'll be providing the link of that in the description box. So if you do not have any idea on the actual Phillips curve, you can refer to that. Here we could see that this actual Phillips curve is something that could be happening, or that could be established in the short run only. Why this happens is because the workers as well as the consumers would be adjusting their expectations about future inflation, and this is based on the present inflation and the unemployment rate. So at present you have a combination of inflation and unemployment, you and I. What people do is that people will use this present combination of inflation and unemployment to form expectations about future inflation. This is what is being understood. Here we could see that whenever the central bank rises the inflation, bank will be able to increase the inflation. Why it is doing this? Because only by increasing some inflation you can have a reduction in unemployment. And in such a case, the Phillips curve will move in the short run from one position to another position. But as worker will form expectations regarding the inflation, what we could do is that it will be adjusting to the new environment. And what we can have at this point is that the Phillips curve will be migrating outward. And this is what we could see in the long run. So we will be increasing. Here we measure inflation along the y-axis and unemployment along the x-axis. Here, if you are at a point A initially, what you could do is that you can have this much of unemployment and this much of inflation. But the central bank or the Federal Reserve, so whichever bank it is, what it tried to do is that it will try to increase inflation. So it will try to increase inflation. How can it try to increase inflation? So as to reduce the unemployment, it will increase inflation by going for another level of inflation that would be something above the already existing level of inflation. Let it be something this. So whenever you reach this point from A, if you reach this point on the Phillips curve, what happens is that your corresponding level of unemployment would be this much. Earlier it was this much, now it is this much. That shows there is a reduction in unemployment that happened. Now what happens as a result of this is that people will make their expectations. They will expect about future inflation. And they consider the new environment and they go for expectation, which will make the Phillips curve to shift outward. This is the new shortened Phillips curve and this is the initial shortened Phillips curve. So this is the shifted Phillips curve. Okay, this Phillips curve will be shifting to the right. Now, here we could see that this kind of a shifting and this way of explaining things is regarded to be true, especially when it comes to the long run. And in the long run, you can have the natural rate of unemployment, or what you call as the NERU, which is the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. And this will effectively represent the economy's typical rate of frictional and institutional unemployment in the situation. So here, in the case of the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, what we could see is that inflation would be non-accelerating, but unemployment would be there. Okay, so what you could see is that we have to consider the role of what is called expectations. And if expectations is these are able to adjust to the changes in inflation, especially when it comes to the long run, then the long run Phillips curve at the point of NERU, or the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, would not be a line which is downward sloping, but instead it will be a line that would be vertical. Okay, so this red vertical line is the long run Phillips curve. So here we could see that the monetary policy merely boosts or lowers the inflation rate after market expectations have worked at this point. You can see the difference between the long run Phillips curve and short run Phillips curve. In the short run Phillips curve, you do not have the role of expectation. No role of expectation. But when it comes to, so that is why it will show an inverse relation between unemployment and inflation. Whereas in the case of the long run Phillips curve, what you see is there exists role of expectations. And for the very same reason, the shape of that Phillips curve would be vertical. That's all about the long run Phillips curve. I hope you could understand the session. I request you to like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos. Also, I request you to join our free Telegram community where you can have discussions and clear your doubts. I'll be providing the link of the very same in the description box. Also, you can download the Oikonomia app. For that also, I'll be providing the link in the description box. That's all. Thank you.